What's going on, everybody? Gentleman94 here. Welcome back to the channel and Sci-Fi Wednesdays. We have here on our bench the Viper Mk by Mobius, and we are nearing completion on this model. This is what we have so far. Kit's put together. We've got the decals on. We've got a gloss coat. We have a sealant coat also of gloss. The canopy has been shaded with Tamiya smoke. We did that last episode. This color right here is great for tinting canopies and anything else. Really awesome. Everything else is really smooth. That top coat of Future really helps. And it looks pretty good, but now we have to weather this thing, and that's going to be the hard part because I'm not very good at weathering. We have the thruster ports, the guns, the intakes we have to go ahead and weather. We have to fade and streak the paint. We have to figure out how this is going to be done. And the nose, the intakes, all of these little openings have to kind of have a little bit of weathering put on. And I don't want to do anything too crazy. I want it to be decent looking, just, not overly weathered. The guns, of course, are going to have to be weathered. Everything's going to have to be touched up and weathered on this. So we have to figure out how to do that. So I'm going to pull this canopy off. I don't want it to hurt the finish or anything like that. Put it off to the side. And let's talk a bit about what we're going to do with this. Now, there's a technique that I've often wanted to try called dot filtering, and I wanted to try that with these. These are oils. They're not expensive. A buddy of mine bought these for me, and I haven't really used them very much, so I wanted to go ahead and try. I've got some gray, I've got a blue color here, and white. So we want to go ahead and use these colors and see if we can't do what's called a dot filter. We've got some thinner, and we're going to have a mixing tray just in case with our brushes, and we can use even a bigger brush if necessary. So have multiple sizes just to be on the safe side. And all we're going to do, guys, is we're just going to take this kit and we're going to do a dot filter, and we're going to start on the bottom wing. Okay, so what a dot filter is basically is just dots of paint. Exactly what it sounds like. It's oil paint that we can just place around randomly on the underside of this wing, and we're going to create like a polka dot effect, and we're going to place it just kind of all over the place. There we are, randomly around different panel areas, and there we go. So once that's done, once we get our dots down of the different colors we want to use, we can then take our thinner. In this case it's just Tester's thinner, nothing fancy. And we're going to basically blend this together, and we're going to streak it. I don't think I need another brush, but just in case, here's a nice one here. We're going to use a medium-sized brush for this area and pick it up here. All right, dip it into the thinner. I don't want it too wet. That looks about right. And we're just going to start drawing the paint in one direction. I'm going to be working from the leading edge to the trailing edge of the wing, or vice versa. I'm not going to go sideways unless I absolutely have to. I'm just going to keep streaking it as if air was flowing over the wing. And I understand that there's no air in space, but this aircraft, if I remember correctly, is also atmospheric capable. So chances are, if this was a real aircraft, it would have flown both in space and in atmosphere. So we're going to assume that at some point in its life, it's had air blown over the wings, through the intakes, and around the different areas. So that's going to be hopefully what we're going for. And I just want to streak this. That's what I want to do, is kind of blend this together. You see a lot of this done on tanks, armored vehicles, things that have a lot of weather to them. And I've seen people go overboard with this, and I've seen people barely use it at all. And I'm going to just stick on the side of, I'm new to this, I want to try it out. Let's see what happens. I'm not going to do it too heavily. I'm going to only use a few colors, and I'm just going to see what I can achieve using this as kind of a base. Actually it looks pretty cool. It's difficult for you to see, I'm sure, because my camera, even though it's a bit more detailed, it's not necessarily the best lighting in here. So I don't know if you're going to get all the little nuances that this is going to kind of bring out of the paint. But it is pretty cool looking. So I'm going to finish kind of blending these together, and we're going to get to the next color. Alright, and we're going to do another little bit of dot filtering here with this gray color. We just did the white, I believe it's titanium white. Now we're going to come in with this gray color. And let's get some to prop up this wing a little bit here. And again, I'm using this micro brush here. I'm just going to take a little bit of paint on the end of it. There we are. And I'm just going to pick some random spots and just put a dot of this paint. So let's put one there, there, and there around this area here. A little bit on the gun port. That should be fine. And let's put some down around the thrusters here. That should be good. Kind of coming back along that trailing edge. Keep my brush nice and wet there, and we'll take some thinner. Now let's streak it a little bit, see what happens. Let's see, and start with the back here. Oh, look at that. That's cool. And again, it's just gonna pull them along where the air would flow over the wings and all that. Yeah, look at that. That's cool. Like I said, I'm not really adept at using this. I've only ever played around with it once, and that was a little bit on the F-105, and it wasn't enough even to worry about too much. But this is looking pretty cool. I like how it kind of streaks. It looks like a little bit of weathering. Kind of dulls the finish down a little bit so it's not so uber glossy. And from what I understand, you don't want your brush too wet. You want it damp. You don't want to just drip thinner everywhere, you know. But that's interesting. I like how that looks. Alright guys, so we have been working diligently on this dot filtering, and we've got the titanium white back out, and we are working on the very top of the aircraft. Now I've done what I can do with the right wing, and I'm working on the left wing now. It's interesting. This actually is a very cool technique. It really looks awesome when you start kind of streaking the paint and everything kind of blends together. I would recommend, though, that if you try this, definitely try this on a gloss coat, and try it on a gloss coat that is not oil-based. Do it on a gloss coat that's like Future or something that's acrylic gloss coat, so that you won't actually affect it, because you have to kind of rub the brush against the model a little bit more than you probably would want to. So be careful with that. Since I'm using Future as my gloss coat, I can come in and safely use the oil-based thinner so that it won't actually activate the Future floor polish or the underlying paint. It's just going to slightly tint it, kind of blend things together. It'd be nice to be able to master this technique and really use it to a great extent, but we'll see. Then I can take a paper towel and I can just kind of rub it along and kind of smooth some things out, because it does leave minor little brush strokes, and if you want to kind of blend those together, you can use paper towel, Q-tip, different types of brushes, anything like that should work just fine. And I'm also going to use a little bit of some weathering powders that I have in my stash for, I don't know, for years. I've had in my stash for years. And I'm going to use those to give a little bit more interest to certain areas. And that should be interesting to see how it all kind of turns out. Alright, so we are continuing to work. We've gone back to the gray color. I tried some of the blue, and I did not like how it turned out. It was too bright, so I'm not going to use the blue. I'm just going to stick with the gray and the white. And I'm just streaking the gray now, and you can hopefully see on camera that it leaves kind of a streak mark here and there, and it's got a darken and a light spot, and it's very cool looking. I really like how this is making the finish turn out. And it is dulling down the finish as well. It's not nearly as glossy as it was. So that's nice for me, because when I go ahead and seal this, I can seal it with a nice semi-gloss coat, and it should blend everything together nicely. So I'm just going to streak the rest of this, pull this across along the, airflow pattern, as if this did have air flowing across the actual aircraft. We'll just continue with where we are. Now I've taken a little bit of this AIM weathering powder. I've got two. I've got grimy black, and I've got some form of like a gray color. I'm using the grimy black, and I'm just kind of touching up certain areas like the intakes and the wing panels coming down behind the intakes, and just dusting slightly here and there. So that's going to give it a nice little bit of contrast, a little bit of shadow. And I'm going to just draw it out with my brush and just get everything kind of blended together without losing the subtle differences between the dark and the light spots. Again, weathering is not my forte, guys. I'm not really good at weathering, but I'm working at it. I'm trying to learn, and hopefully I'm getting better. Okay, so the last little step I want to do here is I have this light gray colored pencil. And what I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to pick out panels, and I want to kind of, I guess you could refer to this as chipping. I'm going to try to mark up certain areas that may have been chipped by like a rock or some sort of debris or something, and maybe heavily worn areas that pilots are getting in and out of the cockpit, or people are taking off panels to fix engines, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to use this light gray to go ahead and just kind of make little marks here and there. The reason I'm using light gray as opposed to like a silver color or anything like that is because I don't want anything too stark. I still want it to be in that same color type, you know, that gray, muted gray, bluish gray. That's why I'm thinking I'll stick with the gray color, and it'll give just a little bit of accent. And to get a little close up here, you can see I'm just drawing a little bit kind of in an area where I think there might be a bit of maybe like debris might have hit or something streaked across. And it gives it a little bit of accent, gives it a bit of character. You know, I haven't really ever used this technique before, so this is the first time I've ever tried this as well. And yeah, I like it. I think it's cool, and I should try it on other aircraft and tanks if I have the. So, and the nice thing about this too is if you end up getting too much on one area, right, you can actually remove it. You can rub your finger across it, which will help to blend it out. Or if you don't like it, you can pull out just a simple eraser, and you can actually erase some of it as well, which is great. It'll help to dull it down. Maybe it'll take it away completely. Depends on what you want to do. So this is really interesting. I like this technique. Just a little bit of gray on certain panel lines give it so much character. You can tell a whole story with just a little bit of a nick here and a nick there, and maybe a different color variation here. You can tell an entire story just with the weathering alone. It's amazing. And again, since this is, you know, an aircraft that's been used a little bit, you know, it's going to be weathered in certain areas a bit more than probably it is later on in the show. So again, just a little bit here on this back panel, as if maybe they've taken off the panel a few times and they've nicked the paint here and there. So, and then I'm just streaking it with my hands, and it's adding a little bit of character to it, which is really cool. I like that a lot, actually. And again, I actually did a little bit of experiment. I took a sponge and I took a very diluted mixture of the dark gray paint that I used for the engines, and I gave it a little bit of a stipple effect with this sponge and the really diluted paint. And you can see a little bit of a gray color here and there, a little darker gray. It looks a little bit like maybe oil stain or something. So I've come back through with this colored pencil, and I'm just coloring in certain areas where those were, as if maybe something had hit, maybe a little impact or something. So I think it's pretty cool. And there you go, guys. This is kind of on the road to being done. This is my first real attempt at weathering in a long time, especially something of this type of aircraft. I don't know if it's any good, but I think it's passable. And I'm going to let it sit and let it clear up, let it cure, and then we'll see where we go from here. Anyway, guys, we'll see you next time back here on Sci-Fi Wednesdays. Hope you enjoyed so far. We're getting close to the end of this one, guys. So bear with me. We'll see you next time.